Well, hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of Certified Forgotten. We are your horror podcast that talks about films with 10 or fewer reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. And usually that means we're going to talk to you about some indie 2000s direct to video horror. Maybe if we're feeling it, we'll talk to you about something from the 80s, some video nasty that recently got a home video release and is suddenly back on the screen in a big way. Today, today we're going to talk to our guest about something in the fucking Criterion Collection. So if you thought that Matt Donato and I were not classy bitches who did not talk about those kind of movies, Matt, we do. We are classy and we do talk about those kind of movies.
I mean, I own multiple Criterion movies. Like, I'm not, I have some level of class in me, even though I wear tank tops with the demon, or sorry, Dude Bro Party Massacre Fraternity on it. But aside from that, I think I level up every now and then when the Criterion sale is there.
I would like to think that there is someone out there whose favorite episode of Certified Forgotten will be the Cremator and whose second favorite episode will be Zombie Ass Toilet of the Dead with Ted Kagan. That is the range of possible movies that you can find on our show, and I am equally proud and ashamed of all of them. That is what we do.
We contain multitudes, or whatever the hell that quote is.
Well, you're listening to a full hour long episode of the podcast, which means it's not just Matt Donato and I. We have ourselves a kick ass return guest. Donato, introductions are in order, please.
Introductions are always in order. Yeah, it's a guest episode. We haven't done this a little bit, so I'm a little rusty here, but I will give it a go. We are welcoming back a friend, a colleague, and all of these things, Miss Tori Potenza, programmer of Brooklyn Horror, critic, journalist, XYZ. Keep going. Hello, Tori.
Hello, friends. I'm really excited we get to talk about this, especially because the last movie I brought y'all was very like girly pop body horror, and this is
Mm.
just like very bleak and all dark. Yeah.
You couldn't have swung any harder in the opposite direction.
You're welcome. I contain multitudes.
That is the theme. If we named our podcast episodes anything other than the title of the movie, this one would be called "We Contain Multitudes." I like that.
Yes. hmm
So before Donato jumped on, Tori, you and I were talking a little bit about Snowpocalypse 2026. And I do feel like we have a lot of East Coast listeners. And right now, they're feeling, they see Donato and other folks in Los Angeles posting about sunshine and movie premieres and all of this goddamn bullshit. So let's get real for a second. How is New York? How is New Jersey underneath the 1.5 foot of snow that we just got?
It's been pretty crazy. I mean, like, I'm an East Coast girly. I'm from Massachusetts. Like, I remember like a lot of blizzards and snow days. And the last two winters, I feel like, have both been kind of a curveball because we had a lot of like mild weather up here for the most part. And now we're getting full on snowstorms again, which is really wild. But it's really pretty for at least a few hours. And then I have to take my dog out in it, who insists on climbing on top of all of the snow piles and then
Mm.
like falling into them and getting scared. So it's really delightful over here.
That was always my favorite part about when I lived in Brooklyn. Everyone's like, "Oh, it must be so beautiful like, when the snow falls and you get to see it in the city and all this stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's beautiful for like an hour, and then cars just pile it into the ground. It gets super
Oh, yeah.
gross. It gets super dirty, and it's nothing but like mucky slush and like grossness." So I don't know. I never had the charm of a snowy New York City beyond walking around maybe Manhattan if you're lucky enough to see like first snowfall. Other than that, it was
hmm
just miserable because my thing was too. I always like go to jump over a curb or jump over an ice patch, and I'm like, oh, it's fine on the other side, and then I'm like knee deep in fucking just gross sewage that's been thawed and unthawed for 5 days. No, I don't need it.
People keep posting these videos of like a couple like getting into an argument or like breaking up while like trying to climb over all the snow piles everywhere. And it's very funny.
Yeah, it is something it's taking me a little bit because I've lived in cold, obviously. Grew up in Alaska, everybody knows this. I can stomach the cold and can stomach the snow. But what I haven't had to experience before, I guess a little bit when I lived in New York, but I feel like the winters were milder then, is the fact that there's just nowhere for it to go. So you
Hmm.
are, you are trying to shovel out your walk, and you have to in the city of Philadelphia, because if you don't clear your walk, they will fine you. The city will find you and fine you. And I'm in favor of that. That's good. You should be helping create safe walkways for other pedestrians. I don't mind this. But you're doing your civic duty. You're shoveling out your path in front of your house, and you're just like, where do I put this? And so every car, the space between every car is just filled with like 4 feet tall of snow, because that's all you have is like this the six, the 2 or 3 feet between the car in front of you and your car. You're just like, let's see how high we can get this berm to go. I do feel like it is, there are a lot of things I love about city living. Obviously, we are all city folk, but yeah, sometimes you forget that there are like, oh, if you get a foot of snow, it has to go somewhere. You can't just run around with a butane lighter and melt it all in real time and then be like, "Be gone, foul demons." You gotta find a home for it.
No, they get kind of weird if you try to do that, which is a little unfair, I think.
Well, let me ask this too: as somebody who's lived all up and down the East Coast, the big controversy in all of the Philadelphia Facebook groups has been, is it kosher to reserve your spot? If you dig yourself out and you leave, is it appropriate for you to mark it with a trash can or a safety cone or something, even though that's not technically, part of the rules? Were you one of those folks? If you saw that and you were pulling in, would you honor it, Tori, or would you be like, this is fucking hard enough as it is? Every man for himself. That parking spot is mine.
I mean, I don't drive, but I feel like people should, if you put all that work in, because also, like, I used to work at Eastern State Penitentiary, and we would
Mm.
have to, like, clear, like, if we got snowfall like that, we would have to by hand, like, shovel all of these areas and then give a tour right after. So I'm just like sweaty and exhausted, and then I have to go talk to people. So it's like, if I put all of that time and energy and then like someone swoops in and just like takes the glory, like I think that's kind of fucked up. Yeah.
I think it's kind of like the Buffalo Bills, the NFL team, when they're, well, in their old stadium, when it would be tremendous snowfall because you're in Buffalo, New York, they would tell anyone, hey, if you want to come dig out your seat, that's your seat for the game. And I think that kind of goes over, like, the rule there, being like, if you do the work, it's yours. I kind of agree. I think it's, if you're in a city
Mhm.
kind of atmosphere and you put the work in, like, yeah, some schmuck can't just come in and swoop in. It's like someone stealing a spot that you've been waiting for anyway. I don't know. I'm not okay with
Yeah.
that.
And I feel like in Philly, like someone might actually kill you if you did that. Like people in Philly are kind of feral in a way that I really respect, but
Yeah.
there's rules, you know?
Yeah, people in New York get a reputation for being mean, and they're not. And people in Philly get a reputation for being mean, and they are, but productively. I would say that's been my experience so far.
Yes.
It's again, and both cities are just different versions of "Don't waste my time, don't be an asshole." So I
Hmm.
respect that.
For sure.
Well, I know you've been on the podcast before. If you want to go back and listen to Tori talk a little bit about her own horror journey, her career, and how she's kind of gotten to the place where she is, I would strongly encourage you to do so. We'll make sure we link to that in the post on certifiedforgotten.com for this episode. But when we have a return guest, one of the questions we like to ask, especially if we're starting off the year, if it's the first couple of months, is how is this year in horror looking for you? We've had a couple of high profile releases. As a programmer, I imagine that you're also doing some pre-screening stuff. You're kind of like beginning to sift through maybe some films that have come in that might be things we'll be talking about in 6 months' time. So, a combination of what you've already seen that everybody else has seen, what's been released on streamers or released in theaters, and the crystal ball that you have that says you don't know it yet, but you'll be talking about this in 6 months. How are you feeling about horror in 2026?
I definitely think there's stuff to look forward to this year. I feel like maybe it's been a little bit of a slower start than say like last year. Like I feel like last year that we were like really like swinging for the fences immediately. And like we did start off with 28 years later Bone Temple, which is an incredible movie. So
Correct.
um yes, like amazing. Like that was my first like theater experience of 2026 and that was a really great way to start the year off. So, I feel like I'm really excited about that. I'm trying to see too cuz I know I have like my most anticipated of 2026. The Backrooms trailer just dropped today, so I'm really excited about that. That's very much my creepy kind of vibes. I think we're getting a trailer tomorrow of Camp Miasma, the new Jane Schonbrun, which like
Mm.
Jane is my favorite. Donato was there when I saw the TV glow and just immediately was like, this is my fucking movie. So that's definitely going to be a big highlight for me. Yeah, I feel like those are like the big ones. Well, Alpha too, we still haven't Alpha had like a little bit of a short festival run, but I mean that's going to be a very exciting one too. Yeah, and the Blood Countess actually, because there's an Elizabeth Bathory movie starring oh, why I am almost gonna say someone else's name, Isabelle Huppert. So she's playing the Baroness, and I think that's gonna be a lot of fun. So I think those kind of things I'm looking forward to, like
Mhm.
not so much like Scream 7 and, Ready or Not 2. Like I like the first one fine enough, but like I'm a little over some of the studio sequel stuff. So it's really all about the indie stuff. And I think as a programmer, that's the stuff we're kind of like looking to program anyway. And that's the stuff that gets me excited.
Yeah, it's been slower, I would say. I would agree
Mm-hmm.
with what you just said because, like, I was looking back at my letterbox because I know I've already had to write some pretty negative reviews, and
Mm.
the last few years I was writing a lot of things that were aligning with my usual thought of January is not a dumping ground anymore. January is a perfectly fine month where good movies come out. Again, Bone Temple, right there. Like we're talking about a fantastic movie, but looking through my list, I'm also like, oh, Killer Whale. Oh, Return to Silent Hill. Oh, Strangers Chapter 3. Like, it's been a
Ooh.
struggle this to start, I'd say 2026. Outside the hits, they are there. And the stuff that's coming, I mean, see what I saw at Sundance and what we talked about already on the podcast. I think Leviticus is going to make a splash. Neon already bought that for
Mm.
obvious reasons. I think that's one to also keep on your radar. South by, I can't wait to find out what's going to kick ass at that festival because there is so much genre, and I've already had a head start. Like they cross programmed a bunch from Sundance, and I still have like 20 genre films on my list. So I'm excited for the future, but I really need to dig out from where we are right now.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let me ask this because I honestly don't know the answer to this question, Tori. I am repping for those that we don't have video, but I am wearing my Brooklyn Horror hoodie right now in honor of Brooklyn Horror and Tori's work with the festival. And because Brooklyn Horror happens so late in the year, I know that there is an element of a best of the fest in some of your programming. You guys are usually, you have world premieres, you have regional premieres, but there's also a couple of titles you might be picking that maybe have shown somewhere else or people have seen, and you're giving
Mm.
an opportunity for folks to see in New York or revisit after the word of mouth has caught up a little bit. But I don't know from the programmer's perspective how much weight you're putting into the things that are rolling out in, Telluride, in a South by Southwest, in Overlook, although Overlook's not a huge one, but Overlook is another primary film festival. I'm curious if right now you are looking and seeing what's getting picked up and maybe thinking, is that something we could think about depending on release dates and distribution rights and all of that kind of stuff? Or at this point in the year, are you purely looking at submissions or thinking about submissions and saying we're going to pick from the stuff that isn't playing anywhere else?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a mix of both. I think primarily for submissions, we're still like mostly getting shorts. So we do get feature submissions for sure, and we usually get a couple at least in the film freeway that are like real great, like real solid. But yeah, I think like looking at festivals is for sure something that we're doing, and like seeing like critic reviews rolling out and that sort of thing. We usually start with a list of just like stuff that's being released throughout the year just to kind of like keep an eye on like what we're expecting, because being later in the year too, it's hard because sometimes there's like a lot of great stuff that we want that it's just like it's going to get released before the festival
Right.
hits. So that's always really hard. Like we were really lucky that like we got Queens of the Dead because that was something that like I saw really early in the year, and I was like, I mean, it takes place in Brooklyn. Our friend Zero is an extra in it. Like
Mhm.
we like need this movie in the festival. And like we love queer horror films, so like having that as like Slade block and doing it as the opening night film was like amazing for us. So yeah, I think like and being a critic too, it's great because like I'm usually paying attention to like festivals or covering festivals. And so I think that gives me like a little bit of an in too of just like what's not being talked about yet. That's like gonna be really good. And those end up usually being like some of my favorite things. Like Touch Me, the trailer for that just got released, and like that's such a great movie. And we had a really good time with like Addison at the festival.
Mhm.
My dad, and my sister went to see that movie, which was a choice, but they both loved it, so that was exciting. Yeah, so definitely like a mixture, but I get so jazzed when like I start reading reviews for festival stuff, and I'm like, oh, if this isn't on our list, if we haven't contacted someone for it, like we got to do that like ASAP.
Well, I mean, I'll give you guys a compliment too, very easily because I've been coming since year one. Like, I've been seeing the programming every year, and I think what Brooklyn does very well is program things that you're also in the thick of it in timing. So you have like Telluride right around you, like you're right in the prime time for horror festivals, and yet your programming is always unique. Like there are always still so many things that I haven't seen yet, or I might have missed at other festivals that I'm able to see at Brooklyn. And that has, always kind of like, there are many things that bring me back, quite obviously, but that is always one of the things that I will give you guys credit for because, you're mining the depths of what's out there and you're not just reprogramming the same big hits over and over again. Like, sure, some will be there, but you're striving to actually make it a unique experience, not only for the faithful, let's say, who are in Brooklyn and haven't seen anything, so like they're going to be jazzed about anything you program, but also the people that come back and the people that have seen the other festival lineups, and digging out the stuff that still has not been premiered is it's impressive.
Oh, thank you. I mean, we definitely try hard. We care so much about the quality. It ends up feeling like a weird, just like Frankenstein's monster of different stuff that's like been in festivals, found in Film Freeway, like we got screeners for from random places. And I think we do a really good job of trying to make sure there's like kind of something for everyone. Because like you two, I think are a good example because I feel like your taste doesn't always align. So I feel like
I don't know when it does align, actually.
unless when I'm on the podcast, because I feel like we're gonna like this one too, I assume. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to like have stuff for every kind of horror fan that's coming to the festival. I think that's something that's really exciting.
And I want to ask a little bit about the programmer brain versus the critic brain, because I saw online, I think somebody we all know, BJ Colangelo, was sort of talking about the mentality of doing interviews and Q&As versus the mentality that you do when you're reviewing or writing about a film, and kind of what those two different things are. I I feel like a lot of people that go into programming don't stay in the film criticism world. I do feel like it sort of pulls you, and maybe this is my bias, but I feel like it pulls you in a direction where you kind of adopt a little bit more of a mentality where you're becoming an advocate for stuff. And it's something that I've seen a lot of folks that are really, really good programmers, really good about talking about film, curators and historians, which I think is an important part of programming. It's not just this movie's good, this movie's bad, but the historical, the curatorial components of those I think are really interesting. So I'm curious if you feel yourself, if those are two paths that you find are difficult to walk at all, if you find that they're complementary, or if looking ahead in 5-10 years you see yourself focusing a little bit more on curation versus film criticism, or the vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, I love writing about film, and I feel like reviews were something that I struggled with for a little bit because I write a lot of like essays and editorials and that kind of thing. And I know when Donato and I first met, I was just like, oh, you are like a seasoned critic. Like, I will ask you like your thoughts and opinions and like get some of that like kind of insider information from someone with a lot of experience. And I think those things were helpful. And I think I sometimes still have a challenge of being like, what do I feel like a review is supposed to be versus just like, no, this is how I want my review to be, and like this is how I'm going to structure it and do it, and just like making it my own. I think that's kind of a difficult part. But I think one thing, like, I used to watch a lot of Mystery Science Theater 3000, and when Joel was the host, he would always have the bots say like one nice thing about the movie they watched, no matter
Yeah.
how terrible it was. And so I feel like I always had that mentality with criticism before I started like doing the programming. And I think that's helpful because now I can see like, maybe I didn't love this film, but like I can see a reason why it's like programmable. Or if I'm writing a review, I can see like how this has an audience that isn't me. And I think that's something that's important to me. Like, I don't love being mean to a movie, especially if it feels like it is like an indie filmmaker that is trying their best. Like, I'm going to give them a lot more leeway than I do like a studio film that is like total garbage. So I think I always like, even when I'm writing like maybe like not my favorite film reviews, I try to have a little bit of a balance of like, this was not for me, but like
Mhm.
this person might like it, or like this director did this thing really well, so like their next feature, like I hope they, you know, strengthen that or do something different. So I think it kind of complements each other. I definitely don't write as many reviews as I used to, and I think I try to be careful about what I review because I don't want to like potentially trash a thing that we might end up programming. I feel like that's a really bad look. So I
Yeah.
do try to like, on the other end, like if I really love something and I know like we're going to program it or we want it, like I have no problem gushing about it. So, yeah, there is a bit of a mental game for sure there.
And I think, you know, it's complementary in the ways that you just said, especially because I think we talked about this too when we were talking early on, when you were starting writing and stuff. And, you know, when I write a negative review, 90% of the time, I'm still trying to do my best to ensure that somebody who will like this movie is still going to get that from my review. And I
Mhm.
think that plays into what you're talking about with programming, because like that's the whole thing where I might not like this movie and my critic brain might be like, this is bad, don't see it, but it's programmable and it fits a slot. You know, it's an audience pleaser, you know, it's these other things. So like I've talked to actually like a few programmers at this point, and that is the biggest point of contention of like, yeah, you can program a movie marathon as you I guess to say, for your friends, and you can be a
Mhm.
little more critical and you can show what you want to show. But you know, if there's something that people continue, like the audiences love and critics hate, that's something that you can slot in there, and that's something that you can say, okay, we're putting on a festival and selling tickets, we're not running, you know, JoeBlow.com or something. It's very
Yeah.
different breeds, I think, that I have heard from plenty of programmers at this point. And you know, it's what I it's what I used to give Justin and Barone shit about all the time at Brooklyn Heart, like the first few years, because we have very different tastes. And I'd be like,
Yep.
dude, your midnighters are still like slow burn horror movies. Give me like something that hits me in the face and is like a party movie. And then they programmed Party Hard Die Young the next year. You're like, are you happy, Donato? I was like, yes, I'm happy now. It was
Well, it's worth mentioning that Matt Barone, a lovely human being, came on the Certified Forgotten podcast and had us watch a movie that you and I, to this day, have never shaken. The most uncomfortable. I don't even remember the title. I just remember that movie made me feel bad, and I've stayed in that feeling ever since. So,
it was Three Extremes, right? I
yes,
believe it was Three Extremes. Yeah.
yes,
Oh, I actually haven't seen that yet.
yeah,
That
you're
sounds
you,
like Barone though.
yeah, you don't need to. Yeah, I think you're probably okay. You brought up MST3K. I wanna mention that too because I was thinking last night. I did like a late night blue sky thread, which I very rarely do. But they're talking about kickstarting a new season, a short run season of MST3K with Mike and Bill and Kevin Murphy as kind of returning as their original characters. And I was kind of reflecting on the fact that I like you, like my first film class was MST3K. Like I know all the lyrics to the Werewolf song in order to this day, just because it's beautiful. There were for years I would hear on the radio another track from the medley and be like, one more piece of this has fallen into place. I used to have dozens and dozens of tapes. I used to make everybody I know watch MST3K, and I feel like I've soured on it a little bit. And I think part of that is I don't think that they're mean. I don't think that they think that they're above the cinema, but it just the idea of poking at movies even bad movies is just a little bit less appealing to me, I think, at this point. So I've found that I've had a hard time to go back and rewatch some of my favorite episodes of MST3K. I'll still watch the shorts every now and then, because I think that that's propaganda, and when they're taking a shit on it, it's totally fun. But I don't know. I do feel like that say two nice things mentality. It's a little harder for me to kind of get into the rhythm of them making fun of something, having at least seen how difficult it is to fucking make anything happen and know how the sausage gets made. It just, for some people, it empowers them. And I think for me, it makes me bite my tongue just a little bit more.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I feel like I haven't revisited it like a ton in recent years. There was a period where I kept trying to like sneak it on when they would do like the Turkey Day marathons in the
Mm.
background, but I was usually the only person that wanted to watch that. So that didn't last. Um, but yeah, like I think I really liked it when I was first. Like I watched it with my family when I was younger, and then in my 20s I had an ex that had like all of them recorded like from like back in the day, and they were really fun to watch that way too because you got like all the old commercials and stuff, and
Oh
so
yeah,
there
yeah.
was like they felt like such great historical artifacts. But I was also like kind of getting into horror for the first time, and so those were really good gateways into film. And there's a lot of stuff that I saw that I probably wouldn't have been able to see otherwise. Like I love kaiju movies, so like them doing like all of the Gamera stuff is really amazing.
Yeah.
And the Gamera song is my personal favorite that gets stuck on my head sometimes. But yeah, I think that in general I'm more of like a lover than a hater when it comes to movies. And you're right, I feel like knowing how hard it is to make a movie, and like if I meet a filmmaker and I watch their film and I didn't like it, I do feel like I default to just like a making a movie feels kind of like a miracle. Like, and I like it's kind of a funny thing because I feel like it's just the line, but I'm also like, yeah, like you did the thing. Like, and it's like so much easier to not do the thing. Like, I have an idea for a short that, like, considering my ADHD and hyperfixation, it's like, who knows that'll ever be more than just an idea. So the fact that like people like actually did the work to do it is so impressive, even if it is not great.
That's my biggest tell. Oh, like after a film festival, it's like, oh, what'd you think? Oh, you made it, man. You made it. Good for you.
Every movie is a miracle.
It's the same. But no, I think I agree though, where on the positivity about it, because like I've gone back rewatched and I don't have any sour thoughts of MST3K. Like I actually think the curation is what makes them good, and the
Yeah.
curation specifically of like they are spotlighting movies that you wouldn't really be able to see otherwise. So while they're doing it through comedic means, they're still serving up movies to the masses that otherwise would just disappear. So I think
Mm.
that's the good that comes out of it. And the other thing too is like they're actually good at it. The one negative I'd say from MST3K is every film bro after who got drunk with their friends and started a podcast because
Yeah.
they thought they were just as funny. And you're not. Like you're just not. That's not how this goes. I've had the same thoughts and luckily never acted on them because I realized the next day, no, that's a bad idea. Everyone else is trying it. You're not as funny. So no, I actually think the community's good. Everything about it is like rooted in a love for the movies and not a shitting on the movies. So as long as the heart's in the right place, that's the difference. That's always going to be the difference when when either you're being a critic and watching a movie and being like, okay, this filmmaker has so much passion, they know what they're doing. Like you can see that come through. So I think specifically for like the OG MSC 3K stuff specifically, they are coming from such a love of what they are watching and a love of the medium itself. So I've never felt that too. Plus riff tracks. I don't know if you ever downloaded the riff tracks that they would do
Never
for
have.
new
No, I
movies.
did. I did once, and I don't even remember what movie it was.
The Twilight Saga through riff tracks was my college experience. Like we watched every single Twilight together with riff tracks, and they are some of the fun. Like I still have memories and quotes from those. Same thing. It's I would highly suggest if you ever want to go back and do the riff tracks. They're good.
I also think like there's probably some movies that I would never like watch if they weren't on MST3K. Like
Yeah.
I can't imagine raw dogging Manos the Hands of Fate. Like
But that doesn't that have like a boutique, like nice home video release now? Yeah,
oh,
like
probably.
yeah, yeah.
Also, you brought the cremator. Like, what do you mean you're not just raw dogging Thanos?
Well, hold on, hold on. We're not talking about the movie yet, but there is a world of difference in quality between these two films, and I will not let this slander. Are we gonna fight about the cremator in the second half of this episode, Donato? All right, okay. We'll get there when we get there. Uh, to summarize this conversation, what I'm hearing is Snow bad, MST3K good. Is that an apt summary of what we got?
Yeah.
I'm more of a Joel girly than a Mike, but like I won't get into
I
that.
was all about Mike when I first started watching, and I think I switched to Joel. I think it's the more time you spend watching MST3K, the more you appreciate. There is an earnestness to Joel that I don't think you can find with Mike. So I think I'm with you there.
He's also like a lovely guy. I went to like a couple
Oh,
events
cool.
that he did and like hosted, and he's like such a sweetheart.
Well, there you have it. There's our definitive ranking of the hosts. I guess not. There's like the comedies or the Netflix or whatever one. So there's more hosts, but the two main hosts, Mike and Joel, we've got them ranked here on Certified Forgotten. That's the content that you come for. And I hope you enjoyed that conversation, which I think was lighthearted and fun. Because when we talk about the cremator, I can't promise that the conversation will remain lighthearted and fun. So we're going to take a quick
Mm.
break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the cremator. All right, welcome back. So today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about our very first and probably last Criterion Collection title on Certified Forgotten. We're talking about the Cremator. If you haven't had a chance to see the film, it is available for streaming in because they don't do anything half-assed, an extraordinary transfer on Criterion Collection website. So go watch that, and if you're still here, come join us. We'll give you a little bit of a plot synopsis first. The Cremator opens on Karel Kopfakingel, a devoted family man in pre-war Czech Republic. Karel leads a comfortable life, coasting on his mother-in-law's dowry while earning a little extra as the lead technician at the town's crematorium. Sure, he's a little odd, but he loves his work and dotes after his children. And when Karel reunites with an old Austrian army buddy, he slowly becomes drawn to the rising tide of Nazism. Suffering, he says, is a great evil, and we must do all we can to alleviate it. And what better way to alleviate suffering for Karel than to watch the whole world burn? The Cremator. Tori, where'd you watch this for the first time?
I actually watched this for the first time last year. It had been on my watch list for a while. I think it ended up on like a letterboxed like highest rated underseen horror list or something, and it was one of like the first ones on there. And weirdly, I had watched a bunch of uh her eyes like work, or I'm mispronouncing it, your eyes work. I watched like 3 or 4 movies of his last year, and this one is like starkly different from the others. The others are all kind of like these whimsical fairy tales, and this is definitely not whimsical for sure. But I watched this like my friend Amy and I, Amy from Brooklyn Horror. We were having a sleepover with my dog, and I was like, "This has been on my watch list for ages. Do you just want to watch this?" And like, we both like loved it. It was such a crazy viewing experience. But this is like exactly my shit. Like immediately after I bought the Criterion Blu-ray of it because I just knew it was immediately like a top 5 film for me. Um so yeah, it hasn't been that long, but it's one that has been a little bit in the back of my brain ever since I watched it, especially just with the historical and social context and how much that relates to what is going on in our very country. Yeah, so sorry about bringing it to reality for us all here.
That's okay. I see the headlines. I'm never that far away from the subject matter of the movie these days, it seems
Yeah.
like. Donato, your thoughts on the Cremator?
My first thought is once again the hilarity of you and Amy having a sleepover and be like, "Ooh, what do you want to watch?" Like, "Oh, the cremator."
This is why you need to do Brooklyn horror shit if you're listening to it. Like, if we sell you on nothing else about the programming and culture that they're building, it's that anecdote right there. That is why Brooklyn horror should be on your radars, because that's the kind of stuff they're doing when they're not doing Brooklyn Horror. Donato, please continue.
Yeah, the Cremator, the girly pop sleepover movie of the year that everyone should be rushing to go see with their friends. No, it's fucking great. I mean, it's the Criterion has put so few horror movies into their collection, whether for whatever reason that is, but the ones they have put are all unique and interesting in their own way. And I was really drawn to the Cremator in the same way I was drawn to Peeping Tom, and the way that they kind of, they're very different material, let's say, but the way that they take these creators, however you want to define them, one might be a cremator, the other, operating a video camera and all these things, but they are these warped individuals who see their profession as profound in a way that makes them so susceptible to the manipulation of terrible people. And in this one specifically, obviously, it is the Nazis, and they are the worst of the worst. They are the most terrible. But it's a movie that's so romantic about death in a good way, like the way it treats death and talks about it, and cremation specifically. Like, I am someone that is so pro cremation from the dumbest reason of I don't want to wake up in a coffin. Like, just burn me alive. And they even make jokes about that in the movie. The whole, like, it doesn't happen that often anymore. Like, yeah, fuck no, cremate me. I want to be dust. But the way that it talks about, has those conversations, and is able to, like, so eloquently describe the not having fear of death, but then having that be the reason that the main character just starts murdering people because it's, oh yeah, they're impure and I am saving them, and death's great anyway, so don't worry about it. Yeah, no, there's a lot to this movie.
There is. And I've talked about it before on the podcast. I think, one of the things that I liked about being able to go to grad school, very lucky to have been able to do that, is that I got to take a bunch of different world cinema courses. I took a course on Hungarian cinema, I took a course on Ukrainian cinema, and a lot of the focus of those two national cinemas is, of course, post-war cinema, what happened in the aftermath of World War II. One of my favorite films of all time, something that is never far from the back of my head, is Mephisto by Sven Savo. And that is a film about a German actor, an Austrian actor, I think, during the rise of the Reich, who is kind of like, he's an okay actor. He's not bad, he's not great, but he's sort of a coward. And he kind of like navigates this pathway to where he ends up becoming one of Nazi Germany's greatest stars, just because he maybe informs on the people that are ahead of him and like maybe looks the other way when bad things happen. It's very much a story like the play that it's referencing, Mephistopheles. It's very much a deal with the devil kind of thing. And I, I I think about that movie pretty regularly. I only saw it the once when I was in the cinema course, but I think about it a lot. I probably should revisit it. And that was right at the top of my mind when we were talking about the Cremator, because this is another Devil's Bargain kind of movie, but it's Devil's Bargain movie, like you said, Donato. It is, if you're somebody who reads the synopsis, if you read some of the contemporary writing on it, there's a really good essay in the Criterion Collection. The beauty of the Criterion Collection is they give you essays, so you have historical context for everything that you're watching. Jonathan Owen is the guy who wrote the essay for the Cremator, and he does a great job of kind of grounding the then Czech Republic, now Czechia's social movement, kind of the narrow precipice it was on between Nazism, Stalinism, and like this little sliver of like, oh, democracy and nope, and all of that being cast away by the side. It gives good context for the film, but this is a horror film. This feels like a serial killer movie, and I was surprised at how much there's almost like a found footage vibe to this, and the fact that this character is like narrating his own madness and justifying his own actions. And I want to turn back to you, Tori, and sort of say, I know there are people that are going to watch this and be like, this isn't really horror. Like, it's got some horror elements, but it's not really horror. Why is it horror? It's horror. Why is it horror?
I mean, just spending time with this character feels really horrific in a lot of ways. Like it's really interesting how he's brought in and he's like kind of portrayed as this like loving father, but then immediately it's brought up that like his wife and the matriarchs of her family are the ones that are keeping them afloat. And so just off the bat immediately you're like, oh, this guy is going to have an inferiority complex, which
Yeah.
is Unfortunately, so textbook straight cis man. I'm sorry, the Mats.
We
Like,
know what we are.
okay, great. Uh, there's so much too. Like, he is just like the perfect target for like becoming a Nazi. Like, he doesn't really seem to have a sense of identity. He clearly is like easily manipulated. He seems to be like pushing all of these like sexual desires down, which they just immediately use as like the main reason. Like, hey, join the Nazis. We have hot blondes. Like, that is kind of the thing that gets him to betray everyone in his life, which is like fucking insane, but also doesn't seem far off from maybe some like, I don't know, like Reddit esque men online. That are willing to just like, you know, like date AI girlfriends and
Mm.
like screw all real women. I said one thing too is like the whole scene when they're at the like boxing match feels very much just like some like Andrew Tate esque like weird like, oh yeah, like we get people into like the physicalness of this, and then I'm gonna like add in all of these like ideas about the world and what things should be like. And I think there's just like something very insidious about the film and off putting that just makes you feel a little icky the entire time
Yeah.
you're spending with him and watching him as his like he seems to have all of these like very he has all of these like very specific ideas about the world, and then you just see how quickly he is able to like kind of change his opinions
Yep.
and blend them together. Like Buddhism and Nazism blending together in a way was like a crazy aspect of this movie. Like, how are you aligning those two things together? And so there is just like he is a horrific person. Like, the Nazis are horrific, and the things that like they do are really horrific. So I think all of that, and then there's also like this like not really talked about, but there is like this haunted element to it with this figure that is kind of following him around for the entire movie that we don't like really get a ton of information on, but I think there's like some interesting like theories about what that is. So yeah, I think like this is clearly just like a man that is like ready to be a psychopath. And like you mentioned, Donato, like peeping Tom, and I really see those kind of aligning of just like he is like about to just turn into a total psychopath.
Yeah, it's showing the worst case scenario of exactly what you're talking about, the parallels today and to what the right is doing, and how it's so easy to manipulate the youth, but just by using an Andrew Tate or one of these right-wing podcasters and stuff, and like how they are so successful, because we keep saying over and over again, like, how does this keep working? How does this keep yada yada yada? And the answer is really clear, because they're just really good manipulators, and it's that easy to do it. And I think what the Cremator does specifically well is show you the person that Carl can be, and like the goodness within him in trying to like embrace Buddhism and do all these other things. And you know, he loves his family even though he goes and screws prostitutes and all this other stuff. Like, there is the both sides of like, you know, that he's corruptible, you know that he's not a perfect man, but there is some part of him that wants to be better. And it's just what you said, how quickly that evaporates, how quickly that is so just, oh no, wait, I can just become this great cleanser. I can become this person who rids the world of impurities. And just using those little words, he doesn't see it as fucking genocide. Like, he sees it as actually doing good, to the point that he is so lost that I love one of the final shots in this being the superimposed image of a Tibetan temple over like his words, basically, and he's repeating Nazi rhetoric. So it's not even that he like conflates them both, he just completely unites them both, and you're like, oh, you just went there. Like, that is how gone you are, and how easy it was to get you there, because so much of this movie, as it's a lead up, you know, I think Monica, you said earlier, if you read the synopsis, you know, you have a good idea where this is going. And I
Yep.
did read the synopsis, and I was actually impressed by how much of the movie saves the real nasty bits until later. And it's just kind of touched upon throughout, and you can see it building and growing, but it doesn't really get to the real bad stuff until later than I expected based on the synopsis. So I was very impressed with the film's patience, the confidence to tell this story the way it does. And also, this is a 1969 movie, so it's way closer to the actual events of what happened, and the historical elements of all this stuff. So it's just very interesting to see how the horribleness of Nazis was dealt with in this era of filmmaking, because in today's day and age, I don't think you can really make the movie where the main character just becomes a Nazi at the end, and we just go, oh yeah, okay. I mean, I'm not complaining about that, actually. I think we're in a good time to be showing where every movie that a Nazi's there, they die horribly most of the time. So I'm
Shout
not
out
against
Silent
it.
Night, Deadly Night, the remake.
Like, and literally squeeze it into Silent Night, Deadly Night, the remake is insane, but they did it, and I like that they did. So I don't know. It's just really, it's really interesting to see a movie in the late 60s dealing with this topic and making it so haunting, and being able to do so in a way that like is just more approachable at the time somehow. Like, it has just happened, and it just feels way realer and way more reliving it in a strange, odd way.
And I want to ask, Tori, we're going to go back to you. I want to ask a little bit about the central performance. So, Rudolf Rushinsky, who is the main character, the main actor in the film, as Owen talks about in his essay, there's a lot of duality in the movie. And Rushinsky was known as both like a very, I know, Donato's giving me shit because it's rolling off my tongue. I took
No,
diction
no,
for
no.
singers. I want it on record. I spent years of my life being able to pronounce foreign languages and something approximating the truth.
I'm not giving you shit for it. I just think it's very funny that you figured out how to pronounce it, and you're like, I'm going to say it as much as possible now.
I am going to say it. It came out right the first time, so I'm going to say it again, and I want to be happy with that. Rushinsky is considered, or was considered, in his native Czechoslovakia, or sorry, Czech Republic. He was a both a serious actor, but he also played broader characters. There's somebody that could do a bunch of different things, and I think a lot of that is present in the Cremator. I think it is it I am stunned at this performance. I think this may be one of the greatest performances that I've seen in any genre film of any flavor, kind of ever. Like, that is sort of where I'm sitting at with the film. So for Carell, Tori, what was it about that performance that makes this work? Because the whole movie is just his face, oftentimes looking directly at you in close up.
Yeah, I mean, there's one element that I think is really great is like the physical performance, like the way that he makes himself off-putting just by all of these little things he's doing, like eating just like slabs of meat, like with no, like with his hands, like while
Mhm.
he's talking to people, or cleaning out his ears, like at like a fancy like table with all of these people. Like he's doing all of these really small gestures that you're just like, ew, like I would hate to be around this guy. And that's not even like hearing the actual things that come out of his mouth. I think one thing I really love about the performance is just how he makes just like a mild mannered man feel like the most sinister thing in the world. And
Yeah.
there's like so much hidden underneath the surface. Like I think he maintains a pretty like he like his like mood doesn't really seem to change too much except for the couple times where he gets like a god complex, but overall like when he's just narrating, I feel like he does it in like a very matter of fact kind of way.
Mhm.
um and there's something just very I'm trying to think of the right word. Like he's just a schmuck. Like he doesn't
Yeah.
really have any of his own ideas. Like it's all stuff that he's kind of like piecemealed from other things, and like you'll hear people say something to him and then he repeats the exact same
Yes.
thing later. Like
Mhm.
there's just nothing original about this guy, and because he is this like mild mannered guy, like people kind of let him get away with things like way longer than they should. Like the way that his wife looks at him, like in that last scene with them together, and it's like she has to know what is coming, and she's just keeps being like, but she doesn't do anything, and she just kind of keeps like letting it happen until eventually she is one of his first victims, at least that we know of, because I think there's an argument that he may have been killing some of the people that are his like
Yeah.
to be cremated selection of bodies. There's all these like younger women, and considering that he keeps talking about saving people and like having them no longer feel suffering and that kind of thing, I think there's an argument to be made that like maybe he is kind of already a serial killer. I don't know. And that's kind of scary to me, is that like he could just be a regular dude, or he could be like pure evil. And I think, unfortunately, sometimes you really can't tell with men.
Well, this film was made 50 years ago, and I feel like it
Hmm.
is it there, I have not seen a movie that seems to capture the danger of, you can call it the male loneliness, epidemic or whatever
Hmm.
you want, but just like men that don't have a center and are willing to kind of
Hmm.
go wherever they feel a sense of kinship or community. It's that old meme of like, you grow up and you're like, oh, I'm close to God, and then you go see your first like pop concert, and you're like, oh nope, that's what it was. It was just a bunch of people together hanging out. Whoops, sorry, I wasn't actually religious. But I think of the parallels in this film between the moment where his friend from Austria is trying to convince him that he has this Germanic soul, and he kind of like haltingly, to for the sake of moving the conversation as long, he's maybe a drop. And then there is the moment that I think is one of the most frightening images I've seen on a movie screen in forever, which is the slow dawning Nazi salute that he does when he's standing outside
Hmm.
the building and a whole bunch of people are going in and they're saluting him. And like he does it for the first time, and you see him light up. Not even because I don't think he has any special affinity for Nazis or for Hitler specifically. He's just like, he feels a sense of belonging. He feels a sense of community. He's important in a way that he wasn't a year ago. And that's sad, man. That's fucking gross, and that makes me feel uncomfortable and yuck. Just a lot of yuck on that.
Yeah. It's also interesting the way that he like bastardized like Buddhism, because I think of like Buddhism and mindfulness, and there's a lot of it that is trying to just like let go of the ego, and all of it is like him trying to like soothe his ego and get some semblance, like you said, of like power and influence and money and all of these
Yeah.
things that he's been lacking up until now. Yeah, I think it's, I mean, just that idea too of like, and the Nazis did it too, of like taking and stealing different ideas and
Mhm.
concepts and just like piecemealing them together into this kind of crazed ideology. And I think, unfortunately, it's really easy for people to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a movie that somehow, not even somehow, because everything's cyclical, everything happens over and over again, just in different ways, but predicted the entire alt-right basement bro culture we have right now,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just to the T. Like, this is that character, and the chameleon effect, and the way that these people who just regurgitate what they hear and just make anything their personality because they don't have one, and
Hmm.
it being so easy to just maneuver around and do that. Because what does he hide behind? Buying fancy things for his family, and he talks about money, and he talks about power, and that's what he gets through the salute. Power. That's exactly what he feels. It's community, but it's also this sense of just almost ascending to like a level character, because that's where he gets at the end, when he's being ushered in a car and being told, we have so much work for you, like your potential isn't even reached yet, and
Yeah.
he just keeps lighting up. And that's all it took, is just to hear that you're special, and to hear that you can be something great if you just join our cause. And I love that we're doing this while the State of the Union is going on too.
That thought had crossed my mind.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Well, you could be watching. We could be watching Gaslight on Turner Classic Movies, or we could be doing this. Shout out Turner Classic
Mm.
Movies for that fantastic counter programming they're doing this evening. You're hearing us describe this film. It is a film about Nazism in World War II. It is a black and white film, which we haven't mentioned before. It is a foreign language film, and it's done in what I would describe as a very theatrical style of performance from a lot of the actors, a little bit of surrealism mixed in. You're going to think that this movie is slow, or that there is, an emptiness to the edit. Sometimes you see these types of films and you're like, okay, like I get it, but it's going to be a slog. It's 100, what is it, 110 minutes, 100 minutes. It's going to be a long
Mhm.
film, and I'm going to feel it's going to be a vegetable movie, right? Like I'm going to watch this and I'm going to come out of it, having a lot of deep thoughts, but it's not going to be the most fun. But there is a conceit to the way that this film is edited together that is maybe the fucking coolest thing that I've seen in a long time as well, and does such a good job of getting the character through the various stages of his journey. So back to you,
Mhm.
Tori, the editing and the way that they set up and finish scenes across different cuts. I like, how cool is that? That's the question. How cool is that?
I mean, that was that was one thing that was really fun about watching it with Amy, because Amy is also a great filmmaker. She directed Cannibal Mukbang, and so it was really fun to watch it with someone who is a filmmaker and hear her talk so much about the editing. Like the next morning when she was driving me back to Philly, she was just like, "Oh, I just like can't stop thinking about the way that movie was edited." And you're right. Like there's a way that it's edited too, where there's so much visual storytelling and it tells you so much about his like mental state. Like he's buying art and his eyes clearly keep fixating to these different like nude paintings of women, but then he like clearly goes and buys these much more like conservative like looking paintings. But it's just like in the back of his head the whole time that it's
Mhm.
like he is just constantly thinking about like women and like this very like perverted gaze that he has. And I think it also works really well at the end where he is like getting to hear that he's like about to be in charge of like all of the giant crematoriums that the Nazis are planning to build. And he is standing in front of a Hieronymus Bosch painting of
Yeah.
like what hell is like. And you're just like, it's like just dropping in like all of these edits of like close-ups of the painting, but then also fading in all of these like Jewish like neighbors and friends that he is like basically planning to like burn and free. It's I just think it's yeah, it's like really great storytelling, but you're right, the way it's edited too, it kind of just like I don't know, there's something about this movie that really puts me in like a daze. Like it's hard to look away
Yeah.
from what I'm seeing, which I really love when a film is that engaging where I am just like, oh, I am just in it and I like cannot look away. There's just so much detail in the way all of these like rapid cuts are put together.
And if there was other films, they would do one of these edits once, where basically a film starts and then a scene ends where he like reaches out to shake somebody's hand, and then they
Mhm.
cut to the next scene where he's like shaking the hand of somebody in a different location. They do all of these jumps between different narrative blocks of the film. Good filmmakers might work one or two of those into the movie. This does it 100 times over the course of the film. And Donato, I think this is what you were just about to jump into, because it is. I am mad that other movies aren't edited that way now. Like having
Yes.
seen this done, I'm like, why the fuck do we have to like music transition? Like, why do we have to have transition? Just like start the next scene, make it work, stitch together. Donato, you were going to say something about that.
That's literally exactly what I was going to go into. I think there's so much forward momentum in the editing because there's exactly what you just described. There's so many great transition shots that get you to the next scene with speed, where somebody might be opening a coat to put it on someone and the camera goes into the coat and
Mhm.
it's somebody else like walking out now wearing the coat and all that, like a different coat, let's say. But the transitions and the way that it keeps continuity flowing so well becomes this fever dream at points, because I think my favorite use of it is there is a dinner scene where the main character is basically gathering information for his friend, the Nazi, at this point, and you get both sides of the conversation happening at the same time. Where every time Carell answers, he's at the dinner table, but then he's hearing from the other side his friend talk, and you go back and forth, and like the answers are happening in different spaces, but they cut together so fucking well, and it tells so much about the story, because you see his like he's enjoying it so much in one area, and yet his mind is somewhere else, like he can't see the wrongs he's doing because he's talking so flowery in the other scenes, the way that is painted together, that he has no idea about the evils that he is supporting, and like that the atrocities that he's willing to commit, because he's so just in this like he's in his own fucking world at this point. I think the editing specifically does a tremendous job painting that. And agreed, it just has so much skip to its step. It's a brisk 140. Doesn't really feel like it. They don't make them like this, like
No.
not to use that overused phrase, but they really don't make movies like this anymore, because there's so much trust in the audience to go on that ride. And the way movies are made now, studios do not trust that audiences have that in them, and I can't fault them at all times.
Yeah. By the way, 140, an hour 40 minutes, not 140 minutes. Just if you were like, oof,
Jesus,
that's
yeah,
gonna be,
my bad.
yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Hour
You're
40.
good. I would say it the same way. Well, normally we would end our conversation. We could talk about this so much more,
Mm-hmm.
but given the time that we have together, Tori, I'm going to end by saying normally we would ask you, how does this film get rediscovered? It's in the fucking Criterion Collection. There is no more discovery than that. That is the most rediscovered. But even then, I think this is a film that's oft overlooked among its peers within the Criterion Collection. Donato, to your earlier point, it is a genre movie, which I think makes it overlooked by folks that are looking for, Criterion Collection and horror fans. There is a lot of crossover, but they're drawn to different things typically. And I don't think I don't think a lot of folks are going to go, get a Criterion Collection subscription just so they can watch the Cremator, although I did. So, what do I know? Who is the audience for this film going forward? Tori, who do you think, how would you encourage people to give this 55-year-old plus film about Nazi Germany from a very different era and a very different nationality? How do you convince folks that this movie is as dark and delightful and terrifying as we've been talking about? What's the hook for folks?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think this movie is for everyone. I think
Mhm.
like everyone everyone should watch this movie. And Donato, you were kind of talking about like audiences now, and I'm thinking a little bit about how if they tried to make something like this now, I feel like audiences would assume that the director is like condoning this man, or like they're like, oh, like I didn't like that, that made me uncomfortable. And it's like, yes, that is the point of the movie. And I think one thing I read in the Criterion essay is that Uri was a concentration camp survivor. And I think knowing that like after the fact, I was like, wow, like this, it is so interesting to see someone that like had this experience and was like, violently pulled away from their homes and probably had a lot of people they know like die and be hurt. Like just pinpoint how pathetic a lot of these people are. Like
Mhm.
the like Carell is like one of the most pathetic like worms of a man I've ever seen. So I think like I definitely think this movie is for everyone, but I think yeah, like one of the hooks is definitely just like how relevant this is. Like ever since I watched it, I've been itching to just write something about like how this portrays like toxic masculinity and how just accurate it feels to what's going on in the world right now. And so I think if you want to know a little bit more about this kind of mentality or just like how someone gets indoctrinated into these kind of movements, it's such a great movie for that. And it is definitely a horror movie, but I also think that like if there are people that are maybe a little more skittish about genre stuff, like I don't think it would necessarily turn people off because it is very dramatic and satirical, and there's like a lot of humor there. It's not necessarily graphic. There's a lot of just like knowing what's happening or what's going on and not seeing it, and I think that is sinister in its own special way. So it's not going to be like gory or graphic like people would think. But yeah, truly it is just like for the like social component of it, it is like absolutely essential watching.
Yeah, if you can get through a 90s Busta Rhymes, Hype Williams music video, then you're in the ballpark of what the horror in this film is like. You can do it. Everybody can do it. I'm not worried about
Mhm.
y'all listening from home. Donato, who you selling this to?
I mean, I'll just double down on everything that Tori just said, and yeah, correct. Everyone should watch this movie. Everyone should know about this, because I once again return to the cyclical nature of history and things that keep happening over and over again. And I think the specific importance of a movie like The Cremator is, well, number one, being tied to so much of the horribleness that is in it, because you have a creator coming from a place of actual knowledge about said horribleness. And to me, it's more, a lot of the rhetoric is kind of like nowadays, oh, you're blowing it out of proportion, or this is America, it can't happen here, or this is
Mhm.
so different, we're a different country, xyz. And if you watch The Cremator, we've talked about it, it's a one-to-one translation. There's nothing different about what's going on here 50 years ago than what's happening. And yes, we are not in a World War type scenario yet, hopefully never, but I don't know, there sure are a hell of a lot of similarities between this movie and things that I see today, even on a smaller scale, let's say. So I think relevance is just, it hits too hard, and it's so easy to ignore what happened in the past and say none of this, it's not as bad, you're blowing it out of proportion, again, those kind of talking points. And then you see something that was created right after the thing happened that has so much context that we don't, and it looks the goddamn same. So yeah, I don't know, I think that's pretty powerful.
I won't add anything other than to say that I think that this is in the running for the best film we've ever talked about on the podcast. For me, I think it's up there with Found is probably up there. I love that movie quite a bit. But I think this might be it. This might be it. This might be the new top of the pile for me. So we'll see what it looks like going forward. That's it. That is our conversation about The Cremator. Also, it's great that it has that name. It's great that it isn't. You're going to hook so many people just by the fact that
Mhm.
it's called The Cremator. Folks who would never in a million years, do something like The Ashes at the Bottom of the Foundry. If it was called that or something, they'll be like The Cremator. Hell yeah, I'll go see that. So you're gonna accidentally turn a bunch of people into anti-fascists just because they're gonna be
Also,
like,
though, the ashes at the bottom of the foundry fucking rules.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Like, if I ever make a black metal band, it's gonna be the ashes at the bottom of the foundry. Like,
there you
that is
go.
an insane name. That's great.
Yeah, off the top of the head. I've got that. I've got Rushinsky. I'm killing it tonight. I'm very happy with
Mhm.
myself. Tori, thank you for coming back on the podcast. Take a moment and hype yourself. Talk a little bit about where folks can connect with you online and keep an eye on the work you might have upcoming.
Yeah, I'm the Neon Banshee on social media. I am a programmer for Brooklyn Horror Fest, and we have badges for sale, and we also have submissions open. So please submit to us. I'm also working as a programmer for Access Horror this year, so also
Ooh,
submit to us. Awesome festival that is focused on disability and horror, which I think is really important. So yeah, definitely submit to both of those festivals. Also, I feel like it's worth mentioning that I did a commentary with my friend Amber for Helter Skelter, which I talked about on this podcast a couple of years ago. So that's with 88 Films. So definitely check that out. Yeah, writing for a bunch of different places. Follow me on social media to hear more.
I know I'm not going to say we had anything to do with that, but it's a nice closed loop when people go on to do booklets or commentary tracks on films that they talked about on this podcast. Puts a little bit of spring in my step, to use what Donato said earlier. It makes me happy. Donato, you're in festival season. You've got South by and a bunch of other stuff coming up. So where do folks stay connected to you online?
You can follow me as always at Donatobomb, DonatoBomb, and that is Blue Sky, Letterbox, and Instagram mostly. I will also say, Monica, you mentioned before, the movies that we hold at the highest regard in the podcast that we've covered, and I have been myself keeping a personal list of every single movie that we've covered on my Letterbox. So if you're curious to my takes on what I've liked the most, head on over to my Letterbox and you'll see that list there. Also, it's a it's just a guide to everything that we've
Yeah.
covered so far, which I actually really like looking back on. And it's crazy to see, like, over 100 movies just sitting on a list that we have covered with all these amazing guests. So if that sounds cool, that's on my Letterboxd.
There you go. As for myself, I'm just on Blue Sky. It's monogle.bsky.social. But more importantly, I would encourage you to go sign up for our newsletter at certifiedforgotten.com. we're in a nice little rhythm. We've got about an article a week coming out on the website, sometimes a little bit more, but you're definitely going to get a newsletter written by me, sometimes with guest appearances or jump scares, if you prefer, from Matt Donato, talking about what's going on in the world of film, horror film distribution. I wax poetic sometimes about things that I think about the state of horror. And more importantly, you'll get a rundown of all new releases and some of the stuff from the website from our archives that we think are particularly relevant or timely today. Do that, certifiedforgotten.com/newsletter. Tori, it was great to have you back. I have a feeling we'll be seeing you one way or the other in person. One of us will before long, either at a festival or a film screening or something. You and I are in the Northeast. Donato goes everywhere. It's bound to happen.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I love hanging with y'all.
That's it for us. Donato, take us home.
Where's my coffin meringue?